So hi everyone, my name is Blandine Juchs. I'm from the People's Congress in Colombia. We've been helping out with these incredible webinars to talk about the book since it's been launched of All In, a revolutionary theory to stop climate change. So you might already know about the book. And if you don't, if you came in without checking it out, please take the time to check. So the book was launched a few months ago already, and there's been a tour, events in many countries, in presence, online. And this webinar is part of this series of webinar where we're actually discussing the content of the proposals of the book. So just to give you an idea, there was a book presentation, I think yesterday in the UK. There's going to be events about movement and current theories of change through history. There's going to be a debate also in Vienna. There's going to be an international summer school in July of political ecology to talk about movement level strategies from the bottom and to the left. So those are all the next events, and there's going to be many others. We'll share with the recording and in the chat the website where you can find everything. But today, this is a special webinar where we're going to talk about movement level coordination. We're going to talk about how to articulate our tactics and strategy uh, to have a political movement globally. Why is that? Well, because as you might already know, the book is about how are we going to change it all? You know, how are we going to transform the world the way it is now? And we need to do it quick. This is what's the basic statement. So one of the things that we all know, and I'm pretty sure you all know if you're connected today or if you're listening to us today, is that we won't do that in one country. We won't do that in one city. We won't do that in one rural area. We know we need to do grassroots organizing, but we also know that we need a change at a global scale. But the big question is like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to be able to connect all those movements, to connect all those initiatives? So to think about it today, we decided together with the authors of the book, and we've been asked as People Congress to help out with that, to invite sister organizations we share views with, in order to talk about how they've been doing it. So what are they doing in their country locally, but how do they articulate in international platforms? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And finally, we'll have a discussion in which I hope you can all participate to see what are our thoughts about and how that leads us to actually a revolution. Those are big questions for maybe 1 hour, maximum 1 hour and a half, but it's just the beginning. And actually, it's something important about that book. That book has an extra chapter that is unwritten. And all those events, all those webinars we're doing is actually writing that next chapter. That next chapter is the how-to. And the authors have been insisting on the fact that the only way to write that chapter is to write it all together with people that are organized, that want to organize, and that want to change things. So to do that today, we invited 4 amazing speakers. So I'm going to introduce them quickly, and then we'll jump in like 2 rounds of question, and then we will get in a more open conversations. So we have Rhonda Ramiro, who's Vice Chair External at the International League of People Struggle, which is an international platform that promotes and develops anti-imperialist and democratic struggles of the people around the world. We also invited Stone Baiden, the national youth leader of the Socialist movement of Ghana, revolutionary arts and culture activist, and involved in regional political education. He was not connected right now, but he will jump in at some point, so I won't start with Stone for today. We also have Luz Angela Rojas from the People's Congress, who participates in the political coordination of ALBA on behalf of People's Congress. She's also part of TELAR, a Latin American network, and most of and some of our organizations are also part of the International People's Assembly, so it's something that can be addressed too. Miguel Montes is going to be with us. We can see him on screen right now from the Academy of Democratic Modernity, which works on the global interconnectedness of all the struggles against exploitation and oppression, and has been really active to connect struggles around the world. So without further ado, I will start that first round with a round of presentation, let's say. Like who are you? Who's your organization? What is the aim? And so that would be our first round. So I'll let the floor to Rhonda to start us off with what is ILPS?
Great. It's so good to be with you all here and very excited for the launch of this book. I think we can all learn so much from it. So thank you to the authors also for inviting me to this webinar. So the International League of People Struggle, who are we? What do we do? And what are we striving to achieve in the world? As Blandine mentioned at the beginning, the International League of People Struggle is an alliance of anti-imperialist organizations. We were founded almost 20 years ago in 2001. Kind of on the eve of the declaration of the war on terror by the United States. But in the wake of so many global struggles against capitalism and its manifestations in things like the WTO, for example. So coming on the heels of that, there was a call made by anti-imperialist organizations, knowing that we needed to coordinate more on our struggles. And out of that, the International League of People Struggles was born. We're an anti-imperialist and democratic formation. We promote and develop the anti-imperialist and democratic struggles of peoples of the world against imperialism and all reaction. We have about 300 and more than 350, so 350, 380 organizations around the world in about 40 different countries. And what unites us is that analysis that at the root of all of our problems, whether we're a peasant organization in Pakistan, a workers organization in the Philippines, an organization that works against police violence in the United States, or an organization targeting the military-industrial complex in Canada or in Europe, we all have an understanding that at the root of all of our struggles, the problems is imperialism, so that the system, and that we can find ways to collaborate and coordinate all of these grassroots struggles in attacking the root, which is imperialism. So that kind of understanding and analysis binds us together. We have 20 different what we call areas of concern of the league. So, we can be as diverse as, yeah, that peasant organization in Pakistan or the workers organization in the Philippines. But find common unity in analysis. And having these, what we call 20 different concerns of the league, allows us to bring these different struggles together, to work together on either common campaigns or common education on the concern. So, for example, just to kind of give a sense of the various issues or concerns that we work on, we have like what we call the big four or the top four, which are overarching, the cause of national liberation, democracy and social liberation, against or for, sorry, social economic development and social justice. So against like economic exploitation. Third, for human rights in and people's rights in all the different fields and against fascism. And then the cause of just peace and against war. The other issues include like sectoral issues on workers, peasants, agrarian people, teachers, educators, health workers, cultural activists, for people in the diaspora and migrants. So, a whole range of different issues that we fight for. And then we, have what we consider country chapters and regional chapters as ways to coordinate those on the ground struggles together. 'Cause at the end of the day, we know that building movement really takes place at that grassroots level that we were talking about. And that means the level of struggle is really at that local level. That's where people are able to hit their targets and realize their blows against the manifestations of imperialism at their local level. At the country level for national liberation, at that factory level, as we're talking about exploitation and the way it colludes with the state. But we raise those local struggles to the international level by exposing the common root and the common actors which are oppressing and exploiting people. So that's a little bit about who ILPS is and what our aims are. Looking forward to the second round of questions where we can dig into um, what we see as lessons in the work that we've been doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you for all those elements. So I would let the floor to Miguel to tell us about the academy, but also the role of the academy in global organizing and international actions. The floor is yours, Miguel.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So yes, from the academy, which is called the Academy of Democratic Modernity, and I'll explain why. We are now traveling around the world, as Blandine mentioned, with a mission that comes from the ideology and the ideas that we are based on, which is the idea of democratic confederalism, which is something that has been practiced in, for instance, Rojava in Kurdistan, but it's also being developed in other parts of the world. And I would say that we sometimes challenge the concept of internationalism because it's a kind of antithesis of nationalism, which is based on the state. Not saying that internationalism is not important, it's a basis of our foundation, but challenging it in the sense that we believe that democratic confederalism includes maybe other concepts than just the nations. So we're talking about all of the different identities, diversities, all of the ethnicities, cultures. And we think that there is a possibility to unite on that basis in a global network, maybe inspired by the idea of democratic confederalism, which is being practiced, and it can be practiced at the most local level, but also at the global scale. So what we're trying to find now is ways to talk about these ideas and to learn also from other ways of organizing that we see. The more we travel around, especially now we're in Abiyala, we see that people are already organizing in these kind of organic forms, sometimes ancestral forms of meeting and organizing. So we believe it's more and more possible each time. Every time we meet a new community that has been struggling against the system for a long time, we learn new things and we see that this is definitely possible. So as ADM, what we're doing is trying to learn from that experience, from different peoples, different struggles, and the practice of Kurdistan also, and the ideas of Abdullah Öcalan, which we call the paradigm of democratic modernity, which is where the name comes from. And the academy part of it, just to be clear, it's not about becoming a new university or a new institution of a state, but it's a popular academy. So it's created by people that saw a need for talking about these ideas and learning more about them. So it's something that a community has decided on. It's not something that's been imposed by some statal program. So we believe that we as peoples of the world can organize our own generation of knowledge and investigations and rediscovering our own cultures and ways of organizing. So this is what we're doing as ADM, and as something that has been emerging the last few years, also as a movement, is what we call the People's Platform, which I think is a subject that is very fitting for this space. We had, for instance, a conference in Vienna in February this year where about 850 participants took part from 140 organizations in Europe. And the idea was to build a platform on an international level that didn't just become a network. Like the perspective is that we're facing a really big challenge today in the world with rising fascism, with environmental destruction, and we cannot reply to this challenge as individual organizations or as local structures. We have to organize somehow on a global scale to be able to respond to this because it's a systematic challenge. What the actual content of this is has to be decided also by the community itself. So we're trying to not go into the platform idea with like set idea of how we have to work or how that actually work, but to open a platform where the people and organizations can decide together, okay, so this is how we have to respond to the situation. So that happened in Vienna. It was a work of about 6 months where organizations came together and defined an ideological perspective together on different areas, 8 different areas, and it culminated in the conference where these different perspectives came together. And now we are taking that to work more on the local level, to kind of tie the international level to the local level, so that we can actually do things on the ground also. So we are now planning a people's platform in Italy, a people's platform in Germany, and now we're in Abiyala also to explore the idea with other organizations about a people's platform in Abiyala or maybe in different regions of Abiyala. But we're here to pose that question to other organizations, like, is it possible, is it needed, and how can we do it? And so, yeah, so we're there.
Thank you. So two small logistical issue to our marvelous host from Pollen Ecology. I'm gonna start to thank you and ask you a favor. Matteo, our great interpreter, was kicked out by Zoom and just came back in. So if you can help me to put him back. Lo sentimos mucho para la interpretación. Tuvimos un pequeño problema técnico, pero ya lo estamos arreglando. Mateo está de vuelta, aunque se acaba de volver a desaparecer, pero bueno, si no, I'm gaining some time for logistical issues. And I'm going to take advantage of that to say hi to Stone Baiden, who's joined us and will be on our speaker list later. So hi, Stone. We're in our first round of intervention to present our organization. So it's a quick round of like 5 minutes, and we have just a small interpretation issue. What I will propose maybe to our great host is to put me in interpretation for a sec while we can deal with Mateo's situation so that we can keep on going. In that case, if that happened, you won't be able to listen to me anymore. So I'll just maybe ask Mariana, one of our author, to jump in to give the floor to Lusa and then to Stone. But I see that Mateo's back, so I'll just give it a second. This is me gaining time with logistical issue. I always love it. Es que pena, estamos intentando reactivar la interpretación. Nos avisan ahí por el chat. Igual mientras tanto les cuento que Miguel y Rhonda estuvieron compartiendo las páginas web de sus organizaciones. So you can also check the webpage of the ILPS and ADM that are being put on the chat. And I think interpretation is back. I love it, which is very good because you need to activate English interpretation if you don't understand Spanish, because our next speaker is Luz Angela from the People's Congress. So, Lusa, the floor is yours if everything goes well.
Bueno, buenos días para todos y todas, todes, aquí desde nuestra América, hablando en el buen uso del español. Bueno, quiero primero pues pedir excusas por mis gafas oscuras. Hice una cirugía en mis ojos hace 2 días y todavía tengo que usar las gafas oscuras. Bueno, yo me llamo Luz Ángela, hago parte del Congreso de los Pueblos, una organización de Colombia, una articulación política que pues surgió desde el 2010, pero articula a organizaciones de mucha más vieja data, como es el Coordinador Nacional Agrario, pero también articulamos organizaciones de mujeres, territorios, sectores de los sindicatos, etcétera, etcétera. O sea, articulamos todo esto a partir de una perspectiva que es el mandatar y que cómo explicar qué es el mandatar. Creo que ahí puse una tarea difícil para la interpretación y es esa construcción colectiva desde el poder popular, desde los territorios, de formas de autogestión, de autoorganización que trascienden los territorios y van a una propuesta de país y obviamente de continente y de mundo. Entonces, en esa idea, porque una de esas necesidades de nuestros ejes de mandato es la integración de los pueblos y la globalización de las luchas. Entonces, en coherencia con esto, nuestra visión internacionalista es un principio político y hemos buscado articularnos a distintas plataformas. Una de esas plataformas en las que yo vengo participando como delegada del Congreso de los Pueblos es la coordinación política del ALBA Movimientos. Entonces, el ALBA Movimientos pues surge, es una articulación continental de nuestra América que articula unas 400 organizaciones de 23, 24 países que lucha por la integración de nuestra América y la construcción de un proyecto emancipatorio desde los pueblos, que habla desde la lucha anticapitalista, antiimperialista específicamente, anticolonial, antifeminista, antirracista, perdón, feminista y ecosocialista. Entonces, el ALBA surgió o sea, ¿qué es el ALBA? Es cuando va naciendo el sol. Entonces estaban un día Chávez y Fidel, estaban juntos hablando de cómo pensar esa construcción y esa articulación de nuestra América y surgió el ALBA como proyecto económico. Y se dijo, tenemos que crear un ALBA, un nacimiento de la articulación de los movimientos sociales en nuestra América. Entonces surge el ALBA desde esa idea de nace un sol, que es el ALBA Movimientos, desde los movimientos sociales, desde su articulación en construir y crear un proyecto para la articulación. Porque en América Latina tenemos un sinfín de organizaciones, de proyectos políticos, sociales, revolucionarios, que han articulado históricamente todas las formas de lucha, pero hay un nivel de dispersión que también es efecto de la agresión imperialista, que nos llama y hace ese llamado de articular primeramente nuestras luchas, con unas líneas muy concretas de trabajo. En estas líneas, por ejemplo, siempre hemos hablado del tema de economía propia, de nuestras formas de gobernabilidad, de respeto a la Pachamama, que también hace parte de esa noción de naturaleza que integra tanto a nosotros como seres humanos, como a todos los seres vivos y ecosistemas en general. Entonces, esa es como la articulación del ALBA de la que hacemos parte. Ahí estamos en una coordinación política, unas secretarías y estamos, o sea, tenemos nuestra asamblea, que el próximo año tenemos asamblea, donde pues además de discutir cómo entendemos este contexto actual desde los movimientos, pensamos estrategias, tanto comunicativas como ideológicas y también de acción política para no solo enfrentar a este capitalismo, sino construir una propuesta a partir de la integración de nuestra América para un proyecto revolucionario, ¿no? Dentro de esta articulación nos encontramos también como ALBA de los Pueblos y a su vez como Congreso, que integramos el ALBA con la Asamblea Internacional de los Pueblos. Entonces, la Asamblea Internacional de los Pueblos es un proceso ya a nivel mundial, donde están partidos, políticos, sindicatos, movimientos sociales. También por eso podemos llegar como ALBA Movimientos, que trabajamos en esa dimensión local, nacional, regional y discutiendo tanto una orientación política, estratégica y organizativa para pensarse un proyecto político, un proyecto de transformación en medio pues de este contexto donde sabemos que el capitalismo no es la salida. Entonces, dentro de la Asamblea Internacional de los Pueblos está el Instituto Tricontinental, que hace parte de ese eje de investigación, porque también nos dimos cuenta que era necesario estimular ese debate intelectual al servicio pues de la causa popular. También tenemos todo lo que ha sido un eje de comunicación y juntos, digamos, que hacen parte de esa batalla de ideas, como hemos también decidido llamar lo que es nuestro accionar para poder enfrentar ideológicamente el capitalismo, pero también tener una propuesta. Y sabemos que esa propuesta no se construye solos, solas, sino que es necesario generar escenarios de articulación. Ya para ir como cerrando, es como muy importante ver que hacemos como que vamos desde lo territorial, lo más pequeño, desde nuestros territorios pensando el poder popular, hasta lo nacional, hasta lo local, porque entendemos que pues, las luchas se desdoblan, pero también que el capitalismo se ha desarrollado en un nivel que tiene unas redes profundas, una capilaridad donde si no articulamos esas luchas, si no superamos esa dispersión, que es como un análisis que tenemos, no podemos enfrentar de una manera transformadora y radical el actual escenario.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Luz. And now I'm going to give the floor to Stone. Stone, a pleasure to have you with us. Stone is from the Socialist movement of Ghana. And we're in that first round of presenting our organization, what are our aim, and then the idea is to get into how do we organize internationally and what are the challenges and so forth. So Stone, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Blandine. As Blandine mentioned, my name is Stone Baiden from the Socialist movement of Ghana. The Socialist movement of Ghana is basically a Marxist-Leninist organization that believes in Pan-Africanism, that believes in internationalism, and that is against imperialism, neocolonialism, and any form of colonialism. We are also against patriarchy. This is a movement that was birthed in 2021, but it has its origins from 1993, where we used to call it a forum instead of a movement. It was a group of a few people who decided that before the insertion or the coming into being of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, they decided, like all socialist or all left organizations went into hibernation because of the repression from the military junta. So this forum decided to have a platform to be able to hold the regime or the junta accountable until we were able to get into the democratic dispensation where we can now vote. Since we became a movement, we've been able to start about 29 collectives. We have 16 regions in Ghana. We've set up about 29 collectives in about 13 out of the 16 regions of Ghana. We are still working on expanding. We are, regionally in the sub-region, we are affiliated to the West African People's Organization. This organization more or less has a lot of people who help to champion the AES struggle that is happening now. We are on the continental level, we are associated with Pan-Africa Today Secretariat. And on the international scale, we are part of the International People's Assembly, just as the comrade who just spoke said. So our fight basically is to liberate the ordinary masses, or to help liberate the ordinary masses, but through internationalism and solidarity, because we recognize that capitalism and all its fronts have been able to perpetuate their hegemony because they are global. They've been able to globalize it, and therefore we cannot fight it in isolation. That is why we have collaborations with organizations like ALBA, there are a lot of them, IPA and all these organizations, trying to centralize the command and trying to bring the people of the world, rally them behind the struggle to overthrow capitalism and in all its forms. This is the little I can say. We have a lot of projects in our organization. We have a school that is called the Amilcar Cabral School that has been like the parent popular education school in the sub-region. It also helps to train other comrades involved in other struggles around the world. We also have a printing press that prints one of the most progressive newspapers in Ghana currently, called the Insight newspaper. We also have the Freedom Center. It is a center for agitation where all progressives, irrespective of your ideological inclination, so for us, you are progressive, you can come around, we have a discussion, and then you can use the space. It is a space we use for our arts and culture processes. We also have a TV station that we use basically to speak to the struggles of the working masses of the world, particularly in the region and on the continent. We broadcast to about 39 countries around the world. We have some collaboration with Telasu, GTCN, I believe I'm right, and some other progressive media outlets. We also have a band, a musical band that is quite progressive. We are doing quite a number of things. Currently, as I speak to you, we are done with composing our own repertoire. In the next 2 days, maybe Monday, we'll be doing the listening session for the repertoire before the recording. And we are happy to say that we are going to have 2 comrades from Asia and South Africa to join us to do the listening and then take their perspective on the songs. But all this is geared towards one thing: uprooting capitalism and all its forms, and then making sure that the ordinary people of the world emerge victorious and control their own resources for their own benefit. Before I go, I must say that our continent has become a continent of interest to both the left and the right on the political divide. And it is rightfully so, because it is a continent that has quite enough resources to even feed the world for some time. It is a continent that has a very young population compared to all the other continents. So this makes it quite a continent of the future. And as we say sometimes, because the scramble of Africa happened when we didn't understand all these things, we know that the scramble for Africa has begun again in a subtle way. And fortunately for us, we are organizing enough to be able to stand up against it. So you shouldn't be surprised at the military takeovers that took place in the Sahel region. They are not something that was born out of greed, but we believe and we are convinced that it is because our material conditions are deteriorating as a continent, and the young people are gradually becoming conscious of who the thieves, if I should call them, are, and standing up to the bullies of the world to say that, look, allow us to run our own systems, allow us to make our own mistakes, allow us to correct our own mistakes. Do not interfere. So it is about the sovereignty of the continent first. And then I believe from there, as Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah once said, we will have an Africa under the banner of socialism. So that is my take from the socialist movement of Ghana.
Well, thank you for that. That's a great and inspiring statement to jump into our second round. So that would be, you know, the main question, you know, like what are the learnings from our experiences and the challenges when we try to organize globally, right? You just give a great list of all the things that we do and all the things that many of our organizations are doing here from all the countries. So what are those challenges for global organization? I will start again with Rhonda, also because you directly represent in that case ILPS, which is as a spokesperson for the international platform. And I think from your intervention, the other we can build up on the challenges, obviously, because we need to overcome them, but also the opportunities. You know, what are the great things that we are able to do when actually we connect our struggles and the great impact it has locally even. How do we support each other? How do we give each other strength through political training, through many other issues, mobilization, and so forth? So Rhonda, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Blandine, and thank you to the other speakers too. It was really inspiring to hear from everybody. Yeah, we grapple with this question, you know, how do you run an international platform and how do you build struggle across an alliance that has people in 40 different countries. And, you know, as I was saying at the beginning, you know, we really do think that the struggles and the victories have to be from that ground up and at that local level, and that these struggles are waged in, localities, in different countries. That's kind of the heart of it. But the linking is the part that ILPS can do. So, you know, as we identify those, you know, overarching issues and, 20 different concerns of the League, we do recognize that there are common struggles and can be common targets that we aim against. But it's not going to look the same in every area. The strategies and tactics will be different based on the conditions on the ground. And so, you know, it can't be a size fits all type of campaigning that we do. So some of the things that we think have been very effective are calling for globally coordinated days of action against shared struggles, common targets, or issues and concerns that are, you know, overarching, everybody should care about. And then a second thing that we do is political education and propaganda on those shared targets and issues, ways that we can learn together. So, you know, I'll just maybe throw out a few examples to give some concrete, you know, ways that we can kind of draw lessons. So an example, in the Philippines, there was a recent victory of workers at a semiconductor factory called Nexperia, fighting for, you know, decent wages and better working conditions against, you know, very horrible working conditions, you know, excessive hours, very dangerous working conditions, and then vicious like strike-breaking tactics and counterinsurgency conducted both by the employer and by the state itself to try and prevent these workers from organizing. But they were able to both organize the workers in the workplace and the surrounding community to give strength to the workers as they held a a strike. For 74 hours, they were conducting a strike once the union or once the employer refused to bargain. The state did bring in police. They tried to break up the picket line on the outside. They intimidated the workers on the inside who had occupied the factory. But because of the strength between the and the surrounding community, they were able to withstand the pressure, expose the collusion of the state and the counterinsurgency that they were trying to use against the workers and against the community, and force the company to bargain. And then they won. They won their demands. This is a experience at a particular factory, with hundreds of workers. But lessons from that could be drawn and shared with other workers in, different organizations that are members of the league, so that they could learn from it and get inspired by it. And not only, sharing the lessons with workers, but also with the communities, which see these kinds of things happening, in the workplaces in their own localities, and can learn from them and find ways to act in solidarity with those workers. So kind of an example of taking something that was at the local level and sharing out the lessons. We've and supported webinars and encouraged statements by our members to be in solidarity with those workers while they were working, and then afterwards to celebrate the victories and share out. Another example would be in Canada, where our country chapter has several members working on issues of war and militarization. And so annually they conduct an action against something called CANSEC, which is Canadian, basically like arms fair, where it's the largest in the Western Hemisphere. Tens of thousands, literally tens of thousands of weapons makers, buyers, weapons promoters come and trade. They show off their killing machines, their bombs, their planes, their drones, etc., and shop them around to cities and countries, police departments and militaries, and even, private uh, companies that can purchase these items and then, wage war on their people, wage wars on other peoples. But our members in Canada saw this as a way to bring together the members as well as different allies to protest against this arms fair every year. And it's gotten, bigger. The protests have gotten bigger. They've become more and more militant. They result in, at least the temporary shutting down of the arms fairs, and then just broader understanding by the community about this arms fair taking place in their midst, and the use of city funding to even host this thing. So while the members in Canada have been doing this, information about that has been shared throughout the ILPS membership, so that our members in other countries where similar kinds of arms fairs are conducted draw inspiration and learn from, and conduct now their protest actions against similar kinds of arms conventions that are happening in, for example, Australia, in the United States, in Germany. So there's lessons that can be drawn. And then, one other thing is we call for solidarity actions happening around the world as, Canada is conducting their action against this arms fair. People in other countries will do solidarity actions, or at least write solidarity statements to show that there are eyes around the world and there are people around the world who care and will demonstrate against that. Maybe one last example, one of our members operates in Palestine, the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature. They operate in Palestine and kind of the broader Levant area. And their strategy is, one of their strategies is around the replanting of the earth, in the, not only, since October 7th, but the ongoing Zionist occupation has deliberately acted to commit ecocide, to basically destroy through occupation, through overt bombings, through the stealing of land, to take over the land of the Palestinian people, to destroy it, make it unable to produce food for the people and be able to support life, as one of the tactics of occupation and eventual genocide of the people. It causes famine and starvation in tandem with, the overt bombings and killings of people, those direct ways, and then also the like long-term insidious way of grabbing that land and polluting it or planting other kinds of crops that then devastate the kind of natural ability of the land to produce food for the people. The ILPS member organization, Arab Group for the Protection of Nature, works with local farmers, Palestinian farmers, to replant their lands in Gaza and in the West Bank, to be able to support food that the people can actually eat. It's hard, it's difficult, especially under these kinds of conditions, but it's inspiring to see when, trees are uprooted, land is devastated and, taken over by settlers, ways that an organization can then work with farmers in different places to replant. It's providing seeds, it's providing tools, it's providing the know-how, people power to support, and then the replanting of the land for food for sustainable food systems in the area. But that could go unnoticed, and it does require support and solidarity from people around the world to know about it, to say that no, the Palestinians are continuing to fight and they continue to stay on their land and reclaim land that is being taken over. How can people then support the ongoing struggle of the Palestinian people to remain on their land? So with the work that the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature is doing, ILPS then can, again, conduct solidarity actions around the world, support with solidarity statements, uh, connect the farmers and the organizations doing work on the ground in Gaza with similar kind of food sovereignty organizations that are doing similar kinds of work in places like Pakistan or Indonesia, so that there are these, kind of learning opportunities among different members. So, ILPS isn't trying to supplant or take over the campaigns that our local organizations are doing, but we're trying to bring them together, create opportunities for solidarity, share lessons, and across members, and then elevate the information about these local struggles to that global level, so that there is, more international recognition and solidarity for the struggles on the ground. So that's a little bit of what we do and how we do it. And, hopefully some of those lessons can be helpful to our participants here. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Rhonda, and that great summary at the end that I won't repeat. Also, so I will now give the floor to Miguel, who already in his first intervention mentioned, the inspiration, the way they organize international event to discuss political matters. So I would invite you also to tell us about those challenges, right? Organize global days of action, building those bridges also go with some challenges. So and obviously the opportunities. So Miguel, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I think I'll keep the camera off because the connection is a bit shaky. So let me
That's
know
good.
if you can't hear me. Well, in terms of challenges, of course, would like to say something to start off with. As a movement, as an ideology, the 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 way of working has been internationalist from the very beginning, and I think we realized also quite early on that there's a big challenge in not just how to organize, but how to understand human beings, right? Because there's a big element of seeing how the system has affected us as human beings and how it's been implanting its ideas in us as peoples and communities. And these ideas often are not really working for us, but more against us. So there's a really big cultural element and systemic element to the challenges. For instance, during the platform that we had in Vienna in February, we noticed that it's very difficult for many organizations to sit in one room and talk to each other in a constructive way because we have systematically been separated. Like the way of the capitalist system has been this to separate us into individual pieces that are in direct competition with each other. And this is the way that the system wants us to be because then it's easier to implant ideas about individualism and profit and all of these things. It becomes normal, and it's what the system is basically founded upon, right? The idea of separation. So there's a big historic challenge there of how to say to repair this damage. So there's a cultural challenge that I think might be even the biggest challenge. Just to learn again to work as human beings and look at each other not as threats, not as threats of power that are coming there to take over us, or not to use that mentality and approach other organizations in that way where we are fighting to impose our ideas on other organizations, but to see the possibility of working together even though we have differences. I don't think that the idea that we are kind of talking about is about imposing one ideology or one idea or even one method. It's about, first of all, talking to each other, getting to know each other, to see where we're at, what we're thinking, but to do it in a very honest way so that we can actually find points that are meeting, right? We can see points where we can converge as peoples, as communities, and we can use these points, these areas, to build organization upon them so that we can become a response against the capitalist system. So I think this has been the greatest challenge because the People's Platform that we had was not the first international conference that we've had as an organization. For instance, a few years ago, there was a women's conference in Berlin, and then there was a youth conference also in France. And during these conferences, we could see that sometimes when the concrete political points were at the forefront, then it became difficult to unite in a kind of organization. And when we focus too much on just building cooperation and like a positive spirit, then sometimes the political concrete questions had to remain on the side. So I think what we tried to do with this last platform was to have a really deep and extended preparatory work so that when we actually arrived at the conference, we already had discussed many of the tough issues. We already had confronted each other on the differences that we had, so that we could find the points where we could converge and actually arrive at this conference with the possibility of building actual organization. And when I say organization, I'm not talking about a specific organization with a name and a manifesto and like a party-like structure, but more in the sense of people's organizing in a natural way, right? Like getting to know each other first of all, seeing each other, and opening up the possibility for all the different participating organizations to connect, not only through us as organizers of the conference, but between each other as well, which is the normal way for a human society to work, right? You start off with a friendly approach to other people so that you have an open door to actually turn to each other when you need something or when you want to propose something. So it's about creating a social fabric where people can meet and actually talk to each other in a respectful way, so that this can become a natural organizative basis for doing things later on. And I think we've been stuck often as social movements in this power structure or power struggle that we inherit also from the system. That we have our program and we go to other organizations, and the mission is to push that program so that other organizations accept as much as possible of that. And like there's this very ego-centered approach. So I would say the biggest challenge has been this, to to mm, to see these problems of political culture and personality problems also, because in the end it's tied to us as individuals in the organizations that we're propagating these ideas, this patriarchal, this capitalist mentality ideas, and that we have to become aware of them so that we can see that these are things that are coming from the system and they're not really serving us as social movements, and that we have to struggle on a personal level also if we want to build a real internationalism. It's not enough to just do the theory. We have to also work internally as individuals to overcome these things so that we can learn again to work as socialists, right? Like socialism is not just a social model. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of acting, and it's something that we have inside of us for thousands of years. We have to rediscover it, and we have to learn how to practice that again. So, I mean, apart from the actual practical challenges, this is a really big challenge. And then, as we're learning, also traveling around with this idea of the platform, as a friend before also, Rhonda said, uh, there's a lot of challenges for each continent, right? For each part of the world. Like coming to Abiyala and talking about these things, you have just the mere fact that it's a very big continent. It's not so easy for people to travel around as it would be in Europe, for instance, where every country is a couple of hours of flight away. And then you have the economical challenges also. Not all the continents and not all the movements have the economical opportunities to take part in an international conference. Like we've had friends that have been gathering money within their community for a year just to collect the money that's needed to buy a ticket to go to a conference. So there's a very big challenge in the effort that it requires to just go physically and be part of a conference. So I think also as organizations that might have connections to Europe or North America, etc., we have to also see this. And if we want to build an internationalist movement, then we have to also take responsibility for for that fact. So we have to use the resources that we have, even though we're all people's movements. We're not rich, but we still can help each other to make it possible to take part in conferences. So there's a lot of practical issues as well. Maybe it's not even possible in Abiyala to do a one big Abiyala conference if you want to focus on people's movements. Maybe you have to do it regionally. And I think another learning also from the People's Platform and the previous conferences is the importance of working from the base upwards. You have to go to the communities, to the localities, to ask what are the challenges they are living through. You have to let them form their own definition of what their needs are, and you have to have that process. You have to give it time, and you have to put in the effort, even though it takes a lot of time to go to all of the different places and collect this knowledge and build from there. Otherwise, it becomes this abstract thing that doesn't have a basis in the actual realities that people are living. So, I mean, the challenges are many, but in terms of opportunities, I think as a movement, we're full of hope. We really are. Like looking at how difficult the situation in the world is, sometimes this is the most difficult task, right? To feel some kind of hope that we're actually doing something that will work. But our feeling is that the more we travel around, the more we work, we see how people are feeling and the energy that people have, and it's totally possible to do something, because people are also in a situation where they look at what's happening in the world and they feel, well, if we don't do anything, then it will just become worse. So we have to be part of some kind of solution. So there's so many people around the world looking for some kind of alternative, and we're lucky to live in a time where we do have a few concrete alternatives also that are giving us hope, like for instance Rojava, like for instance Chiapas, Cheran, and many other places in the world. We just have to really make the effort to see these beams of hope, because there's a lot of how do you say, many layers that have covered what's going on. We don't really have our own channels where we can follow these things. We have to go to the territories to see what's going on. So there's a really big communication challenge also, to have channels that talk about the realities of the world. Like sometimes we have these people's channels, socialist channels, but they are excluding uh, some of the revolutions that are going on, and then they are talking about other ones, and like there's still these kind of power struggles between different people's movements. We have to transcend that so that we can start talking about the realities of the world, because there's really a lot to learn from, and there is a real basis for a new kind of internationalism. We just have to find the ways to see it and connect it.
Thank you. I think Rhonda and Miguel just gave us a lot of great information that is quite complementary. I will now give the floor to Lusa and Stone, but as time flies, I will invite you to open up to that third element in your answers. That would be, what would it take to build, that great global revolutionary movement? What do we need? Those ingredients. Rhonda and Miguel started a little bit. So I would let the floor to Lusa and then to Stone to tell us about, the challenges for organizing, building up on what's just been said, but also, what do we need? What are the next steps we can take together to build and to contribute to this great movement? So please remember to activate interpretation if you do not understand Spanish. And Lusa, the floor is yours.
Bueno, pues yo creo que uno es entender que el internacionalismo está unido a la formación política. Y es importante no, o sea, la formación política va más allá de la propaganda, de la información, que creo que ya Ronda profundizó y estoy de acuerdo con la perspectiva de ella, sino también en ese otro eje de la formación política, como la capacidad de entender nuestros territorios y esas luchas específicas que tenemos allí en relación con un capitalismo y con las luchas y resistencias en otros países. Puede parecer algo obvio, pero pues estas son las realidades y los desafíos que también nos enfrentamos como movimientos a la hora de dar ese salto al internacionalismo, ¿no? Entonces, reconocer, por ejemplo, que Israel es una potencia militar que eso tiene expresiones en nuestro territorio, específicamente en Colombia, pero que además esto se refleja en Palestina. Y cómo las acciones que hacemos de denuncia, de bloqueo económico, de investigación, de cómo es su estrategia, también hace parte de una concepción internacionalista. Entonces, por un lado, la formación política. Por otra cosa que parece elemental, que es la solidaridad. Creo que hay una ética que tenemos que trabajar y reforzar y es la solidaridad como principio pues revolucionario, no solo como esa ternura de los pueblos que hablaba el Che, sino también la capacidad de indignarnos sin conocer ese lugar, sin conocer sus gentes, porque a veces no vamos a poder viajar. No somos somos movimientos sociales populares que nos cuesta salir del territorio, pero que tenemos la capacidad de imaginar y de entender que ya eso que yo estoy viviendo lo viven otros y otras y que la liberación es un proceso colectivo. Otro creo que es esta palabra a mí me gusta mucho, que es reparar, concertar en portugués, el bricoler en francés, que no es solo reparar, sino el hacer a mano esa reparación. Y no es solo reparar para volver al estado original, sino tener la capacidad de recrear. Nuestro proceso revolucionario internacionalista se basa en ese reparar, en ese reorganizar nuestros territorios de diversidades en acción, desde alternativas que debemos conocer, adaptar, ajustar, reapropiar. Entonces, tenemos experiencias, por ejemplo, a nivel de agroecología. No hay cosa más específica en cada país que la agroecología, que necesita conocer el ecosistema, sino también, perdón, voy un poco rápido, perdón, sino también reconocer su territorio y cómo adaptamos eso. Entonces hay procesos revolucionarios en Asia, en África, donde entenderlos nos va a ayudar a aprender y poder reparar y recrear nuestras luchas, porque indudablemente ese capitalismo y su manto de muerte nos ha generado pues que todo esté dañado y esa sensación de cómo arreglar, de cómo reparar eso. Por otro lado, creo que apuntando a lo que hablaba Miguel, creo que es un principio esa diversidad en la unidad, articulación en la dispersión. Entonces, diversidad en la unidad es algo que lo decimos, pero nos cuesta mucho hacerlo. O sea, cómo esa diversidad genera unidades y tiene que ser un principio, no es como yo llevo una vanguardia o yo llevo una plataforma con un título que abarque. Los títulos que abarcan no nos están ayudando. Es más bien tener un largo título que permita no abarcar, sino integrar esa diversidad y articular en la dispersión. Tenemos dispersas las luchas como expresión de esta guerra del capital, mantenernos dispersos, profundizar en ese individualismo y cómo empezamos a pensar agendas comunes, plataformas políticas que llevan tiempo. A veces, o sea, esto va muy rápido, lo sabemos. Es ahora, la crisis climática ya la estamos sintiendo ahora. Pero si no nos damos el tiempo de conocernos, de entender la dispersión, de entender la diversidad, pues después la plataforma no nos va a dar cuenta, no va a poder ayudarnos. Entonces a veces nos toca dar el tiempo al encuentro y superar las trampas del capital en términos de financiación focalizada, lucha por recursos económicos y toda una burocracia que se ha creado unido a esa cultura política que ya comentaban, toda una burocracia que se ha creado debilitando las plataformas en su nivel político, las plataformas de articulación. Y además, agregaría tener un pensamiento estratégico. Si yo voy a construir una plataforma política, tengo que tener un pensamiento estratégico que me permita reconocer esa diversidad, que me permita mirar qué ejes pueden generar articulación, cuáles otros los vamos a ir discutiendo, tejiendo, porque, vuelvo, insisto, es como casi que un trabajo manual. Y ahí llega la pregunta, ¿nuevas articulaciones políticas o afinar las que tenemos? Esa es una pregunta que no, que no está con solución clara, pero sí como pensarnos, ¿será que hacer nuevas articulaciones es la salida o hacer nuevas articulaciones que estén dispuestas a reconocer la diversidad que hay e integrarla? ¿Cómo vamos pensando todo esto en esa diversidad de lenguajes, de sentires y de concepciones? Y por último, disculpen si me extendí, es la acción política. El internacionalismo tiene un desafío y un aprendizaje que es la acción política, que últimamente se nos ha quedado en términos muy comunicativos. Entonces necesitamos generar acciones y acciones que pasen de lo legislativo. Ah, no, vamos a llevar una carta a la embajada, una carta a la ONU, a organismos internacionales. Sabemos que esto ya llegó a una crisis que los organismos internacionales nadie se importa con ellos. Triste, pero pues es la realidad que tenemos. Entonces son acciones políticas que de pronto no tienen que ser tan estelares, pero sí contundentes en nuestros territorios. Y eso implica adaptarlas. Puede que en un país enviar una carta a la ONU, a a la embajada sea la mejor acción. Pero en otro país, hacer una pancarta gigante o hacer una marcha, o en otro país, hacer una velatón, que es prender velas en la noche, un acto cultural. Entonces, pero nunca olvidar la acción política. Y digo esto también en términos de que estamos muy mediatizados. Entonces salimos con un hashtag, salimos con un letrero y a mí me duele porque ese letrero y ese hashtag tienen muy poca incidencia, ¿no? Y agregaría que la acción política en términos también de intercambios. Vamos a poner las manos en la tierra, ese reparar, ese concertar, ese hacer, reparar a mano, implica ir a los territorios, hacer intercambios, a veces dejar el miedo, porque una cosa es diferente es dar un like en el otro lugar del mundo, otra cosa es ir allá y ver nuestras realidades. Y esos intercambios, caravanas, brigadas, también nos permitan formar políticamente a nuestros compañeros, compañeras, fortalecer lo internacional y saber que eso se desdobla. Quien fue, vuelve y cuenta su viaje, su experiencia y fortalece esa dimensión. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Lusa. So, Stone, you now have a great task, which is actually already many things were mentioned, you know, how to build those bridges, mobilize together, support each other, the challenges of unity, and how do you, how do you overcome those debates, generate hope, deal with logistical issue in order to generate political action. And actually, in your continent, you're right now in the midst of revolutions going on, huge struggles going on. So how do you do that international solidarity? What are the challenges? What are the things we need to make it stronger, to step up, and to actually be able to do the changes we want to achieve in the world? The floor is yours.
Thank you, comrade. I am now in transit, so forgive me if the line keeps fluctuating a bit, but I'll try as much as possible to keep my response brief. As you rightfully said, our continent is going through its own series of struggles. We won't at this time qualify them as revolutions because you and I, based on our theories, know that revolutions go beyond just the overthrow of a system, but putting in place a system that is just and equitable to all. So at this point, we will call them struggles, but they are struggles of hope. They are struggles that speak to the cry of the young people on the continent, and I believe the oppressed people around the world in general. What we can do, or what we have been doing, is to, for instance, make sure we are connected to all the progressive, or as much as possible, the progressive organizations in our region and on the continent. Because we believe that it is only through solidarity that we can win this struggle. So we attend solidarity marches when for instance, when Traore's issue came up that General Langley wanted to attack, we organized a solidarity march with some of the people from Burkina Faso residents in our country, with some of the people within the region that find themselves in the country, and then even the Burkinabe embassy. And it didn't stop there. We continue to advocate and we continue to speak for the AES and the people of the region. So these are some of the things we do. Internationally, we solidarize strongly with the people of Palestine. We've had a series of street protests. We've had cultural events, all in the attempt to solidarize. But as I said, I would like, because most of the comrades have hammered and have mentioned a lot of the challenges we are having and what is to be done. I think there is one thing. We tend to have a competitive spirit instead of having a cooperative spirit. And that is what I believe we should avert our minds to at this point. I would like to call on this small meeting to make it a project of identifying all the international organizations like the blocs, like the IPA and the others, how we can, and then have a central organization that is progressive, so that even if you are not a Marxist and you're a Trotskyite, I will still find a common, and that common ground is the struggle of the people. That is the task I think we should take up and work towards, because all these international organizations are powerful organizations in the various regions, the various countries, and the various communities. And imagine if all these national bodies that represent the people come together and have a coalition or an umbrella organization, how powerful it could become in terms of the solidarity work. We all want to say we are right. We all want to say we are wrong. I remember I visited a country to give a lecture on a topic, grassroots work. And in one of my examples, I quoted Leon Trotsky. I think one of the comrades there, if I should call them a senior comrade there, wasn't happy with me quoting Trotsky. So after the class, he approached me, praised me, said, I've done well. He likes what I've done. But he is a Marxist. He knows I'm also a Marxist. And it was a bit off when I quoted Trotsky. But the what is at the heart is the relevance and not the appearance. The relevance of what Trotsky has said to whatever I was more or less facilitating or churning out was what we should have focused on. But he was looking at Trotsky and Trotskyites. All these barriers, we must find a way to break them. There are people who are not even ideological, but are progressive and are willing to help the ordinary masses progress. What are we doing to bring these people into our fold? In 10 years ago, I hadn't heard of Marxism before because I didn't do humanities in school. I did science. I haven't heard of capitalism before. Even if I've heard it, it was just a word. So it was by getting close to people who are exposed to some of these things that I learned. But this is the case. We have formed a block, and we have raised a huge Jericho wall between us. Therefore, we don't want to communicate. We don't want to get anything to do with each other. How do we progress? I always say that who is right? And when I ask that question, the answer that comes is that the people are right. The people are always right. And whatever we will do to make sure that the people are free, whatever we will do to make sure that the people have their destiny into their own hands. The people control the means of production. Is what should be our focus, and not our ideological inclinations. Of course, all these ideologies that we talk of points to the fact that capitalism has failed. So why do we come together and tackle capitalism and bring it down? Why do we hold on to this bossy, egoistic tendencies? If you want to change the world, I think all these curtains run down. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stone, for this inspiring words. And I think this is a common call that everyone here agrees with, and this is a commitment to this event today to build on that. Without taking more time, because I know we're getting to the end of it and we won't have much time for discussion, but I'd like to let Mariana jump in. I know I haven't let Rhonda and Miguel go through the third question yet, but it might be in the conclusions. So without further ado, Mariana, one of the co-author of All In that made us organize this webinar, please take the floor.
Thank you, Blandine, and I'm very happy to be here today and to listen to all of you. It's very it's very good to understand also the different things that are happening, and then or to be in the same room that all of you. I think I wanted to be very quick, saying that I have been doing a lot of international work, especially in Europe. So I'm based in Portugal, and some of the things that were said here are also participated or followed in one way or another. So it's also interesting to hear from the perspective of who is organizing or who is doing it and so on. I guess that one of the main challenge that I have faced in the coordination spaces that I have been at European level and the global level, and something that I see has a very important step for us to give is that to be able to build, so to be able to have together a common plan. So in the sense that to go beyond, like the tactical agreements, go beyond the campaigns that we have together, or like sharing resources, but actually have a plan that is probably or very complex in a way that we'll need to have different strategies that are able to like get together, but that gives a very global perspective to everything that we are doing at a local level, and that we know what is our piece on this global plan in that sense. And part of this also means that our strategies and the things that we are and our plans that we have at local level needs not only to be done at local level, but also at global level. So for example, a group that is doing things in Portugal can have strategies for Europe, right? And can be working on that level with other groups that are in Europe also. And this can happen in different places. And we are kind of missing this kind of coordination, right? So we do have articulations, we do have common campaigns that we are doing, but we are missing these, not just in Europe, I'm saying, right, in all the different platforms existing, this part of actually having these very strategical movement level interventions that can be done not only or beyond the things that we are thinking, because the organization is, with just our organization, is impossible to do it, right? So like to have that happening, and I guess that's like very complicated for all the reasons that were brought here, but it's something that is very important us to be able to give that step, and I hope that we are able to do that, and I do hope that people that are in this room keep talking with each other, and that we can actually make that possible, and to build that plan together. So yeah, that's from my side, and back to you, Blandine.
So I won't pretend we have time for a full conversation, but if someone who's assisting to the event today would like to give a few words or a question or something, it can be done in the chat or you can raise your hand. Meanwhile, I would let you know, a kind of like last round of intervention and conclusion. I will start with Rhonda and Miguel, if you still have time, so that you can, you know, go further on that third part, and that I think that would be it for what we were able to do today. So Rhonda, if you have a few last words you wanna share.
What would you say the third part of the question is, Blandine?
How are we going to make that global revolution with platforms? You know, easy question, 30 seconds. I mean, you know,
we can solve it in 30 seconds. No.
yeah.
But, you know, I won't take much time here, but really, I think it's us continuing to do what we're already doing, continuing to organize, but continuing to link our learnings together, to share our strategies, to act in solidarity, which, you know, I think can, you know, be many different forms. Let's continue to do our political education together so that we can join our struggles. And let's continue to identify, you know, shared targets of struggle that we can conduct global actions against, global campaigning against. And I think that's part of the way that we build the international spirit and solidarity among all of our different organizations and struggles. So I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for having me on here.
Thank you so much. Miguel?
Well, yes, I think the the answer is quite easy. Yes, I mean, we have to organize. We have to confront this system, which is global. So, do we really have an alternative? And we definitely have the capacity to. We see this when traveling around. Everyone is looking for the way to do it. I think this is definitely the time. Everyone feels that if we don't do it, then what should we do with our lives? You know. So I think it's in terms of time and possibility. Absolutely, this is the time to do it. And I think we feel also that it's not just our networks here, but we see so many other initiatives for new networks and platforms that are being formed. So I think we're all in the same search, which is very inspiring to see.
Thank you. Lusa, Stone, last word of conclusion.
Sí, uno, pues agradecer el espacio. Creo que tener ya espacios para pensar estas temáticas ya hace parte, ya es un primer paso. Y dos, pues eso, como insistir, una frase de Camilo Torres, un pensador colombiano, sociólogo y político, es insistir en eso que nos une, porque la articulación internacional nos llama a eso, insistir en lo que nos une y poder prescindir de eso que nos está separando para esta actuación tan necesaria, tan indispensable en medio pues del avance y la necesidad también de una creación de una propuesta política y arriesgarnos a construir, a reparar, a concertar, porque a veces somos muy tímidos, muy tímidas en eso y toca, por lo menos, si vamos a cometer un error, hacerlo de maneras diferentes y a cometer errores bonitos en el sentido de esa dimensión política de una construcción internacionalista.
Hermoso. Stone?
Yes, comrade.
If you have a
So,
last words, please go ahead.
Mine is going to be in just two quotes from two people that I trust so much, or I try to learn from. First is from Franz Fanon, who says that each generation must, in obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. I believe that we have found our mission. Our mission is an equitable world. But the decision is whether we want to fail it or we want to win it. I think that we will fulfill it. Yeah. That whatever small way or however you're going to do it small, I believe it is the build up to that moment. Or say that we are victorious. The other one is from Thomas Sankara, who says that it took the madmen of yesterday for us to act with extreme clarity today, and also admonishes that we shouldn't always go by the books. We should do what is necessary at every time to make sure that the tide is in our favor or in the favor of the masses. Thank you.
Well, what else can be said after that? If not, thank you very much, more than for your time and effort of the comrades of Pollen Ecology, the all-in team, Mateo, who's been interpreting the whole time. I really want to thank you for the energy I'm filled up with right now, and I think more than words, the purpose and that unity we're building goes through that common feeling that we have. So Mariana, I'll let you close up.
That's it. Thank you so much. This is the last webinar from the series of webinar that we have been doing. So this is the last proposition that we have, that we need to have a coordination between all of us. So now it's just up to us to work and make that happen. So that's our invitation for everybody, and yeah, let's get to it.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Please note the contacts and that are in the chat, because it's up to us to actually make it happen, as Mariana was saying. So thank you so much. We can stop